Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yeah. Gita.
पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी।
नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारत तैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः।
प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृततुहे नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचम्।
So we are going to be entering into the shloka number 11 today. So far, we've been looking at a lot of the values which comes under the topic of jnanam. So we saw that starting from verse number 8 and up to 12, you have all these values. And in this context of this chapter, the word jnanam has a kind of a unique meaning. Normally, we associate jnanam with knowledge, but here essentially all the virtues of the mind which are conducive for us to get tuned to knowledge. So that's what jnanam here means. And so that is all the gunas that we are really supposed to get here. So gunas are those virtues which prepares the mind in order to receive the knowledge. And any guna or any virtue which makes this mind eligible, I would say the eligible is very critical. The eligibility, the mind has to be there before the knowledge can really set in, right? If my mind is so outward, it's always constantly thinking about what am I going to do today, what am I going to achieve, what am I going to buy, then clearly that such kind of a mind is not really ready for spiritual knowledge. It may be okay to get, even knowledge of AI or whatever, but it's not ready for the highest knowledge, which is spiritual knowledge. And so that is why here it is called as jnanam. So especially the three virtues that we are going to read of shloka number 11, because we are entering into shloka number 11 today. So you'll see how critical that really the eligibility of the mind has to be there. So these are the 20 values. And just a little bit of last week, what we did was shloka number 10, which is asaktihi anabishvangaha putradara grihadishu. So Anabhishwangaha actually goes with the word Putra Dara Grihadishu, and then Nityam Chasamachittatvam Ishta Nishtopa Patishu. So we did these four values last time. Asaktihi is the absence of a sense of ownership. So Saktihi we said is attachment, and Asaktihi is the absence of any kind of a attachment or a sense of an ownership. Of course, when we say that, don't we have to have a sense of ownership whenever we do things? Like for example, I have to have the sense of ownership that I'm doing the Gita this morning. Otherwise, my body is not going to wake up, right? So that amount of ownership definitely needs to be there. But here we're talking about an excess of saktihi, or this attachment. So asaktihi is a complete absence of a sense of ownership, you know. So here we talked about the areas where we tend to have the sense of ownership or extreme sense of ownership, is starting with the body, and then um, so and then this whole thing of yeah, we already discussed this, the mental attachment to any external object, situation, or person. So all these are connected to this aspect of ownership. And then we did some points for reflection. And next value which we did was anabhishwangaha, which is the sense of attachment to putra dara grihadishu. So anabhishwangaha, interestingly, in this book that I was telling you last time, also the 20 values book, he uses this word, he uses this analogy of oil. So the first time when I was reading about it, I said, what is the relation between oil and Abhishwangaha, But as you reflect upon it, you realize, see, the oil is so viscous and the oil is sticky, correct? So Abhishwangaha basically means this aspect of stickiness, We are so attached to this, our these three things, what he's saying here, which is our own children, our own spouses or partners, and the house. So that stickiness is that extreme attachment, extreme attachment. So Anabhishwangaha essentially is the absence of any kind of excessive affection. So it is the absence of excessive attachment, generally for people, which things that we are, 80% of our life where we come close to. So that is what Anabhishwangaha is. And we talked about the story of Tulsidas, and we did some kind of reflection on what does it mean to differentiate general attachment and excessive attachment. So the example of Tulsidas is definitely, I think, the example of an excessive attachment which he had, and where then he was reminded about that if he had the same kind of an excessive attachment to the Lord, how much better he would be. So we did that, and then we discussed some of the reflective questions here. And then Nityam cha samachittatvam, which is about establishing, it's about equanimity. And so we did this. Now, entering into shloka number 11. Okay. So in this one, you will see how Krishna, having prepared our mind in the previous shlokas on the things which are obstructing our mind. Now in shloka number 11, you will see the aspect of bhakti which comes into play. Okay. So any kind of this highest form of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, is not possible without a devotion to the Lord. And it is only in that realm, or in that space, I would say, in that atmosphere of bhakti, jnanam or knowledge is possible. So we have seen this even in the 12th chapter, where, karma yoga, normally we never combine the three yogas that much, but they all are together. So in 12th chapter, we saw how Karma Yoga will take place only when there is an atmosphere of devotion. So, in some sense, we need to have the devotion towards the object, towards a person, towards a situation, before we can actually perform any kind of karma yoga. And karma yoga, we've seen, is something where we are doing the actions without expecting any results, right? So that upasana yoga needs to be there in order for karma yoga to be performed at the highest level. So this is why this aspect of bhakti yoga is intertwined with the yogas like karma yoga and of course jnana yoga too. Again, when we talk about jnana yoga, which is understanding the knowledge of who we are, that cannot happen unless we have that absolute devotion to the Lord. So this is why in shloka number 11, we'll just chant the shloka. Mayi chananya yogena, Mayi chananya yogena, Bhaktiravyabicharini, Bhaktiravyabicharini, Viviktadesha sevitvam, Viviktadesha sevitvam, Aratirjana samsadi, Aratirjana samsadi. So again, we have 3 values here, and we are coming to the end of the 20 values. So after this, there's going to be only about 1 or 2 values left in the last shloka number 12. Okay, so what is Mai cha anyena yogena bhakti ravyabhicharini? So this whole thing is one value, and that is literally total, complete devotion or unswerving devotion to the Lord. And here he's coming up with the qualification here. And that is characterized by non-separateness from me. This capital me here. The capital me refers to that Lord, that Parameshwara. And so devotion is, so this is, you might say, is a definition for devotion, which is 100%, 100% devotion to the Lord. And how do you characterize this? It is by the non-separateness, that me and my Lord is not different. So non-separateness is the word which is Ananya Yoga. Ananya Yoga, which means that the Lord is not separate from me at all. Okay. So when does this happen? When can we say that I am not separate from the Lord? So this can happen only when I'm 100% convinced about the truth of really who that Parameshwara is and who am I and what is this entire creation about. We have discussed this again in the 7th chapter and then 8th, 9th, all this we have actually discussed about how the Lord is everywhere. Lord is there in the creation. And how is that Lord different from me? No, it is the same Lord who I am in front of me, all this. So that is the ultimate truth. So only when we have an understanding of what the truth is, then I can say that that Lord is not far away from me. Okay? That Lord is me, myself. I'm never far away from that Lord. And therefore, Ananya Yoga. That is, there is that absolute non-separateness. I am, the Lord is not separate from me. So we can also say in a different way of this non-separateness, there are 2 different ways. So one is where, I am that Lord is not far away from me. But we can also say it maybe in a different way, which is there is, and this is an important thing to be noted in today's world with, with our Gen Z population, alphas and everyone, where there is a tremendous amount of security for them, for for the younger generations, when they have, say, for example, the phone in front of them, or they have somebody whom they can be completely dependent upon, right? So, in that sense, that is the refuge for them. That is a security. But here, he's saying that, we can even think about Ananya Yoga is where I totally understand that my refuge is that Bhagwan. Bhagwan is my refuge. That Bhagwan is everything. That Bhagwan is my security, nothing else. That Bhagwan is actually my source of my inspiration also. So once I recognize that aspect, then it's very easy for me to understand that whatever I'm getting in this world, wherever I am in this life, everything is only because of that Lord. Okay. So that he is the, we call this as karma phaladata, or the giver of anything I want. Yoga and Kshema, we in chapter 9, Ananya Yoga, yeah, we that shloka where Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yojana Paryupasate. Nityam, that shloka where we say both yoga and kshema, he takes care of it. When I surrender to that Lord, he takes care of that. So in the seventh chapter, we have this beautiful shloka, yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha. So he describes the four different kind of devotees. So he says, that bhakta who is, tasya achalam shraddham tameva vidadamyaham. So he says, that form, the Lord to which this devotee, completely surrenders, he is that highest form of that duty, of that bhakta. So that bhakta is the highest form, and so that's what he's referring to here. Ultimately, it's that shraddha, bhakti, which we have to the Lord and surrender. So what does this do? So this kind of a devotion then is very helpful because it then prepares my mind for knowledge. So when I see that, we talked about, that preparation for knowledge, how do we make the mind eligible or conducive before the knowledge can sink in, right? So only when I see myself completely doob gaya, we say, I'm totally engrossed, engulfed by that Lord, where I see the complete non-separateness. It's only at that point, and I also understand that second way, this is that He is my ultimate refuge. He is the person who gives me all the things, whatever I want, the refuge. Then only my mind can be very calm. So you can see how and why I said, in today's world, where we're moving so fast and there are so many distractions. And of course, when I say extreme distractions, like the war and everything which is happening, how is it even possible for me to maintain a sense of calmness? The samachittatvam, which we discussed in the Nityam cha samachittatvam. What is samachittatvam? It is basically the evenness of my mind, evenness of my mind in the face of things what I like, evenness in my mind when things are not going according to how I want it to go. In both of them, samachittatvam. All that can be possible when I recognize my connection to the Lord, I recognize my connection to everything that is happening. So that samachittatvam can happen only when I have all this one. So when I recognize that the results, whatever I'm getting is in the hands of that Lord is everywhere. So I'm not pre-programmed, I completely surrender. And in that sense, in that frame of my mind, I will choose always to act in the right manner. And once I've acted, I recognize I have no further choice. Whatever I get is only because I see the Lord everywhere and I know that Lord is taking care of me. So that is the samachittatvam. Geeta, you had something to Say,
No, you answered my question.
what was the question? How is it possible to see to see the Lord everywhere?
Right. I think it's a mindset. We have to take it inside and think of that Lord.
Think and know. And the thing about it is, even in the midst of the most difficult of situations, I have to recognize if on or the only way I can come to terms with everything that is happening is if I recognize that Lord is everywhere, that Lord is going to take care of me. I have to have this surrender. The second I think that I'm separate from the Lord, that everybody is separate from me, I want to use a word, negativity. Okay. The negativity starts at that point. The second I separate everybody else from myself. We reckon, the minute we say negativity is a quality, which is where there are toxic people around me and they are spreading rumors, and that is negativity. That is an extreme sense of negativity. But at the very, very initial stages, at least at the stage where we are talking about today, the negativity starts the second I think of myself as separate from the other person. So that's why the Ananya Yoga is the quality where he's saying
So,
Ananya Yoga, my to me,
so if we
Yeah.
think that way, how will the negativity go away?
There won't be any negativity.
Oh.
Correct. See, that the second in fact, what is love?
Mm-hmm.
Love, we can say to some extent, is that person makes me happy, so I'm in love with that person. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Again, that separateness comes in. But the highest form of love is when I think that I am, he's in me, I'm in her, or whatever, that highest form, that oneness that I see is pure love. So at the end of the day, all these values, they just merge into one aspect of oneness.
Mm.
If I don't have oneness, then I create all this other things, other virtues, which then brings me back to the oneness. And that is why in this chapter, the word jnanam is very important. Jnanam is that knowledge which is leading me to recognize about that oneness.
Hariom, I mean,
Yes.
like you said, the conditions, the environment, and not just that, the conditions outside and what we are coming across, the news and everything. Staying, thinking the other person, not thinking badly about that person causing all of this is a little bit hard, and it's can't can't justify, can't get my head around saying that we are all one. That separation is so vast. It is like it's this something that's, it's not, if they say that if something is in the sand, it's not, it'll vanish at some point of the time. But this is something that is so, it hurts sometimes just to
No, but
see.
yeah,
It
no, this is the reason why that is happening is because we are putting that person in front and we are saying that person um, is the same as me. Now, instead of thinking that way, first let's practice what that Ananya Yoga means. Forget about the person, forget about
Yes,
whoever
yeah.
is the person we are thinking about. So let us first practice on what is Ananya Yoga. Let's not even go there yet. Let's say everybody else, let's say everybody in this screen is the same as me.
That
Okay?
is very easy to say.
I know. No, that's what I'm saying. We start with things which is the easiest. then I kind of, so this is a state of reflection, actually. I start with
Exactly,
that sense of
exact.
reflection. I say, okay, these people are same. Do I accept? Yes, I 100% accept. Okay. Then I go one level next, let me think about my boss and my this one. Because it's not as if we have greatest relationship with our boss and all that. So let me think, is that possible? Why is it not possible? Then I try to resolve it in my mind, and I get it to a state where even that group, my colleagues and everyone, is the same. I accept, until I get to the state of 100% acceptance that even they are not different from me. Ananya Yoga. I should not move. I should not move, So get to acceptance of them. Then get to the state of your neighbors, neighbors who are never in the second round or third in my subdivision, who's living 2 streets away from me. So maybe that is one way of practicing that Ananya. Finally, we can come to that person. Then
Oh,
I
it's
accept.
hard. It's hard.
But let us
Yeah.
do this kind
No,
of an
I can
exercise.
I can go for all the steps except the last one. I can try with every other step. Like you said, calm yourself, calm our mind. We get it to a calm state, and then think about what the other person said, analyze it, and then sometimes it just happens that in the heat of the moment, or at that second, it might not have sunk in, but later on it does sink in, and you can say, hey, I finally understood what you said. We can always, we can go to that person and we can talk. That is something that it has happened to me lots of times, so
Mhm.
I
Right.
can
Yeah.
relate to that part.
Right.
That part is fine, but going
Yeah.
further than that, I'm
So
not
maybe
there
let's
yet.
not go there. Let's not go
Yeah,
there yet.
yeah.
Let's come back to this point here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this,
Hmm.
Ananya Yoga we talked about. The second, yes, go ahead,
I
Geeta.
have another question. See, when I was talking to some people, they said the good way to feel better is don't watch any news or don't.
No, that is, yeah.
So, what is, I mean, if you don't watch, then your mind won't be agitated, right? So that's a solution, they said. But then I don't know.
No, but that's why this next thing which I have on the screen, which is Prasada Buddhi. What is Prasada Buddhi? Prasadam, of course, the standard example we always say is I go to the temple, I pray to the Lord, and then when the pujari gives me the prasad, that is indicative of the fact that now I've surrendered everything to the Lord. Whatever it comes to me, I accept it as prasadam, right? So that is how we understand prasada buddhi. So it is with an attitude of a very graceful acceptance. I'm accepting it that this has come from the Lord. So I have no ananya yoga, I completely accept it. So too, here, I think maybe if I practice a prasada buddhi, it will slowly allow me to accept the news which I'm seeing on the TV, or when somebody is not acting favorably towards me, ishtopapatishu, that thing. So when I do that, then then it brings me a little more closer. Maybe prasada buddhi is first needed before I can think about ananya yoga, you know. So that's something which we can think about is I accept that Lord in Upadeshasaram, I think in that Karturagnyaya Prapyate Phalam, that shloka is, is to really, I always think about that when I think about the thing that, whenever I'm doing an action, I do it and the Lord gives me the result of the actions. That result, I should have the ability to bear it. And for that, I need this prasada buddhi. So I don't question it. I completely accept that he is a giver, he is a karma paladata. And whatever he's been doing it at the right time, but I don't recognize it because I wanted the results to be at the way I want it.
Mm.
Can
So,
we think like Sunita, as like
Yeah.
when you are talking something like got into my mind like a rose tree has thorns and also flowers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So,
We just pluck the flowers, but we ignore the thorns because
mm-hmm.
even the world has so many things, right?
Mm.
Whatever, like as you said, like once we develop all these 20 values or whatever you see, so we can consider like world, we have to have a faith to
Mm-hmm.
believe that the world is a reflection of my actions. So other things will be there,
Yeah.
but it all depends on what you pick, how you look at it, kind of a thing.
Right.
That's
I
what
like the way you
struck
put it. I
because of
like,
your
yeah,
conversation. Yeah, that's what.
right.
Yeah,
No, I like the way you put it. The world is a reflection of my actions.
yeah, right. Beautiful. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. No, you're right. But it's not as if, see, the Nityam cha Samachitatvam, the value which we talked about in the last shloka, it is when I develop this prasada buddhi, when I develop that attitude of seeing the oneness, when I develop the attitude of accepting everyone as me and me alone, then what happens is whatever that comes to me, I don't even look at it as good and bad. Even that distinction is gone. We automatically, one second, there's an insect on my computer.
Mhm.
So that even that acceptance is that we don't even do a judgment of good and bad.
Hmm.
Or even if we do judge something at that moment as, oh, why is this happening to me? Immediately my mind, if this knowledge is strong, will kick in and say, okay, even that is something I'm supposed to face it. So I will face it. You know, there is just no,
so
this example.
you're saying that there shouldn't be any agitation in the mind, whether you see bad things
Absolutely.
or good things. You just no agitation. Just take it as it
No, exactly. At
comes.
that moment, then there may be a slight reaction or something, or, oh, I expected this, but this is what is happening, something like that. But immediately the thought will kick back saying that, guess what? Maybe this is what that karma phala data, had decided that I should get at this time. So let me just go through that phase and be done with it, or something like that. Immediately, if that thought comes in, it is so powerful, I feel. Then immediately the mind comes back to that agitation-less state.
Mm.
I mean, a spring, summer, we are hoping it's around the corner, right? I don't know if, I step out into my into
Garden.
in the front yard, and I'm already seeing weeds coming up. Those famous. I mean, they're amazing. They don't die. They expand. How their root system is incredible.
Right.
Even the deers and the gophers and the bunny rabbits, they won't touch those weeds.
Mm-hmm.
Only once you pull out the weed, the flower that is the good flower that's beside the weed is when the deer or the bunny or the gopher will come eat. It's so amazing. So it's like we pull out these prickly thorn and negative weeds out of our mind, and we are hoping that the beautiful flowers will come, beautiful
Right.
thoughts will come.
Right.
But when
So,
Madhuri was talking
Arun,
about the gulab, the rose flower and the thorn,
uh-huh.
I was remembering of the weeds because my yard is usually full of weeds, and I'm always thinking how to get rid of those weeds. And
Right. Right.
so,
Arun,
Yes, Anand.
Yeah, just remembering about Buddha,
Yes.
when he was a king, right? People told, or the astrologers, they
Mm-hmm.
told his dad that he should not see anything, that creates
Ah,
sadness,
correct.
and then they will lose him. So
Right.
they tried their best just to keep him in the palace and all that. But once he saw, he came outside and then saw, yeah, all the sadness, and
Mm-hmm.
people who are dying, or then that creates that makes him the change,
Mm-hmm.
and then he
Mm-hmm.
goes for the search for the truth, and
Mm-hmm.
go from there.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
mean, so
One
each
needs
it
exposure.
can cause
Mm-hmm.
something. Sometimes the agitations, they can cause him something. In this case, it causes good for the society.
Right. Correct. So once we have the prasada buddhi, then our mind becomes calm, and that graceful acceptance of anything that comes to us in the face of this Ishta and Ishtopapatishu, which was in the previous this one. So this is the result. So samachittatvam happens when I have the prasada buddhi and that aspect of accepting that ultimately I'm only responsible for my action, and any reaction that happens is from the Lord. Or reaction or whatever I'm getting. That's not my reaction to what it is, but whatever I'm getting is only because of that. When I have that kind of an attitude, that kind of knowledge is sunk into me, which is the jnanam part of it, then I immediately have that samachittatvam. And then this ananya yoga bhakti is very possible, very much possible, when I accept a fact which I learned. So, from that experience, I accept it. So that when I have that attitude of that total acceptance, then I have that attitude of oneness or absolute non-separateness from that Lord, that kind of a bhakti, which is what I have. And that is the Ananya Yoga Bhakti. So, and then Avyabhicharini Bhakti. What is Avyabhicharini? So in the seventh chapter, Bhagwan has been described as also, among the four bhaktas. So Bhagwan is also used as a means for worldly ends. But then here we are talking about that Lord who is the end in itself. So, and the bhakti, which is in which the Lord is the end by itself, and if I have to choose that Lord as the end, then I should have the maturity to understand that everything other than that Lord is temporary. Everything other than that Lord is perishable, and uh, everything that is in front of me cannot really give me whatever I want. So that bhakti, which requires absolute, vairagyam from the law, from the world. I should be in a state where I can live in this world without everything that is giving me today that security. That security is that Lord Himself, herself. So that devotion is what Krishna is calling as Avyabhicharini Bhakti, a devotion which is total, steadfast, unswerving. That is the unswerving devotion, which is Maichananya Yogena, Avyabhicharini Bhakti. Other than that, Lord, nothing exists. I have to have that kind of a firm rooted belief in my mind, which is unflinching, unswerving devotion, single pointed, Avyabhicharini. If I can develop that kind of a devotion, then there is absolutely no stress in the world because, again, as Gita pointed out, agitation, there is no agitation at all, you know. So, coming to, how is this of this is, when I have that kind of an Avyabhicharini Bhakti, Ananya Yoga, I can choose to act or not to act. and recognize that the results of my actions are not subject to my choice. I can choose to act. I can even choose to react. Today, reaction, and again, this is something which Geeta will remember, Pradeep will always talk about action is not the most important thing. Reaction is the important, how I react. Uh, so if my attitude is, I am the cause of the results of my action, and that acceptability of whatever is coming to me is determined by then of what I like and dislike. So our mind is always habituated to that. Mind is always habituated to um, uh, responding to the world with a reaction. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of that person. That person made this comment saying that, oh, now the war is all over. Now I'm just having fun. I'm sorry. The point is, even that is a reaction, the reaction to such a big thing. We have no idea how this mind, which is losing its complete freedom to think, it's a reaction which is automatic reaction here. And these automatic responses is how we tend to react today. It's more or less, we are habituated, we are automatically responding. It's just an autopilot mode, for this one. So I have to be careful about that aspect of it. But if I have that 100% surrender to the Lord, then what happens is my reaction is always samachittatvam. I am completely not agitated by it at all. So that is why this, when I mentioned about the eligibility of the mind, which is so very important, mind is the one which has to be free from any reaction. It is very quiet, it is receptive, it can deal with any kind of situations happening in the world. It's always very objective, it is very serene, calm. Such a mind is the one which is Ananya Yoga. Yeah, Geeta?
So you're saying even if we watch something which is agitating, we just watch it, understand, and still maintain the calmness. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes, but
With
with an
full understanding.
understanding, not with a sense of, oh my God, I can't do anything about it. It is not with that attitude. It is recognizing that even
Things
the
will
thing
get
that is,
better. Things will get better. We're calming
no,
ourselves.
that
No.
attitude, what you just said, which that things will get better. Now, what do we mean by better?
Yeah.
This is again this ishta, anishta,
Rishta.
upapatishu.
Ah.
You know, is it going to get better the way I want it?
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, no, this is also, think about this as a big turbulence that is happening in the collective mind.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I accept in that my mind is only a small part of that whole collective mind, when
Correct.
I identify myself with my mind, again, that is the aspect here. Okay.
Mhm.
So this value of Mai Chanya Ananya Yogena, Bhakti Avyabicharini, it is basically if I recognize that I am that Lord. That's why I started off this value by saying that two ways in which I can look at this Ananya Yoga, which is one is I am that Lord is not far away from me. I completely surrender to that aspect of the Lord. If I have that attitude, then everything that is happening around me is happening in that collective mind. And I'm also part of that collective mind.
Exactly.
So it is whether it's going to get better, not better, no. We can't think that way. I mean, normal people, if we didn't have this knowledge or the knowledge has not sunk into me, then I might think that, oh, I'm waiting for something to happen good. That ain't going to happen. Um, I have to accept it. I have to have the prasada buddhi.
Mm.
That is the Ananya Yoga.
Mm.
So let's look at just some questions. So this this particular value really pushes us to ask ourselves, because it's saying Ananya Yoga. Ananya Yoga is where I am not separate from that Lord. So, that being the case, have I really understood what it means by who is that Bhagwan? Do I consider myself separate from the Lord? Am I able to accept that I only have choice over my action and not over my results? And finally, of course, do I see any benefit of this value in my life today? Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely yes. More and more important in today's world that I need this value because, as I said, currently my social security, not social security, my security, I feel, is in that social security. Tomorrow, I don't know if the social security is going to be there. Maybe it's going to be used for something, and he's going to say, I'm taking this away from you. What do I do? So, so this value is pushing us to that level of accepting anything that comes. But again, it's not with a passive way, you know. It is actively trying to understand this. Anyway,
Again, you
moving
have
on.
put a class there, not passively understand. What does that mean?
Passively is where, what to do? I'm not a Republican, or I'm not in the government. I can't do anything. Even such people are, passively accepting. Maybe I cannot use political statements like that, but I'm just saying,
I know it's being recorded.
yes,
Mm.
yeah. So I think we understand now what this Mai Chananya Yogin. So it is basically accepting that oneness with the Lord and having absolute devotion to that Lord. That Lord is everywhere. I am that Lord. Everything that is happening in me. I have to have that thing. And so any reaction that comes to me, I have to have the prasada buddhi, right? So moving on to the next value, which is Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. Vivikta Desha Sevitvam. So Desha means place, right? Vivikta means separate or solitary. And Sevitvam is to resort to or inhabit. So Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is a value where I consciously choose to stay in a secluded place. Okay. So why is it important? Why do I choose to stay in a separate place? I mean, we all go for vacations. Why do we go for vacations? Because we want to, separate ourselves. We want to go away from where we are, and we want to go to a beach or go to a resort or go to an ashram even, right? So we all want to escape something, so we develop this habit of going to this one, not really with the same people with whom we are all the time. Sometimes, even within a family, sometimes, the father will say, I'm going for a shooting expedition with my friends. I don't want my family to come. I mean, this happens in US, right? I mean, during the deer hunting season, they will do this. So Vivikta Desha Sevitvam in general means, the ability to go to a solitary place. And so the question will come, why should this love in a solitary place, why is it really listed as a value? So it is not that going to the place is the value. So it is not isolation of that particular place that is a value, but what really this particular value is hinting is, again, I talked about the eligibility of the mind, right? So it is the kind of mind that is happy in such a place, in a solitary place, where nobody is around, the mind is very quiet, and the mind really wants that solitude and it wants to be with itself. So this value is forcing us to sometimes to be very comfortable with who I am, to be comfortable with my own mind. And typically, this is not a value that we all tend to cherish. Even sometimes when we go for a vacation, sometimes we may go because we want to see other things, you know. But do we ever take the time off to be with who I am? Okay. We do not want to, we are kind of a society that's bent on actually, being with more and more people. But this value is trying to force us to think, that let me be with my own self. Let me not keep my mind very busy, wanting to see places, wanting to see people and everything. Let me just be comfortable with who I am. And for this, I'm going to a solitary place. So that is why Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is for that reason, just forcing myself to be quiet. Okay. So that being said, let us kind of analyze, why do we want to escape? Why do we want to go to all these beaches or Machu Picchu or, mountains, etc. Because at some point, whatever we are doing, at home, it becomes too much. And so we want an escape. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with travel. And Geeta books travel all the time. So she knows, that many people who comes on her travel are people who really want to go completely out from wherever we are, So it's kind of an escape for that thing. So that escape is sometimes necessary because I feel, I'm not totally 100% satisfied with what I'm doing here. So I need to escape. So escaping from something is kind of universal. We all want to do this, you know. But the tendency of the mind to want to escape, it's the mind thing again. The mind is the one which is telling me, I'm done with this, I'm bored, I need to go out. So, from that standpoint, this basic tendency is the same whether you live. I mean, earlier, of course, it used to be a big fashion, of course, only in US, every weekend you got to escape from everything, But it's become very much now an Indian thing also. Weekends, people want to go to the mountains, In Kerala, no, they just go to Munnar, which is only 2 hours away from here. So that escape is always this. So the desire of the mind to escape is very this one. But the point here is, I need to think about that escape in my mind and question, why am I doing this? So the reason for that is because I want to be happy. I want to face myself in a happy mood. So a person who wants to escape from everything to be with oneself is actually wanting that simple, quiet, contemplative space. And that space, I don't need to escape and go somewhere else. Like in chapter 6, there are beautiful shlokas which says, how should that place where we escape to be? It's again, in terms of, it's talking more from a meditation thing. But the idea is, I'm escaping from something because I need to know who I am. I need to have a clear knowledge about myself. So for one who wants to have that clear knowledge, this kind of an escape is necessary, you know. So it's very important for me to escape to a quiet place, but that quiet place is not a physical space, but it is a quiet space within my own self. So I have to learn that, where I'm going to a quiet place, I'm going there mainly where I'm learning more about myself. So when I have that habit to escape from whatever I'm doing to a place where I want to learn myself, that is the value. That clear to understand who I am, I'm escaping myself. So that is the value which this Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is trying to tell ourselves. So,
is it meditation?
Meditation, that's what I was going to ask.
yeah, yes, meditation is definitely one, the idea, meditation is definitely, yes, the solitary place where I want to go to learn who I am. But it is more than meditation, because meditation is always, we define meditation as an effortless awareness of one's true self, So it is already that state. So look at it maybe as contemplation, or giving the time for myself, you know. Um, for that reason, this Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is needed. So I should always, I don't have to escape from something because I'm escaping from issues or problems I'm facing in my family or problem I'm facing at my work. So I'm escaping. Here, this practice of Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is because I want to understand who I am. So contemplation can be considered as one of the exercises of Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, you know. So especially in the world that we are living in today, where um, I'm using AI in a different manner, artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is now making us more and more passive. I don't know if you accept that. Um, so how do I get out of that state of passivity, which is now slowly and slowly dulling my mind? Of course, people will argue it's making my life very, very easy nowadays. I can do so many things which would take me so long, especially writing an article. If I have to write an article, I don't even have to think now. I just put 2 or 3 words into Gemini or ChatGPT, and it will generate the article for me, and I can just submit it or whatever. But it is, I have to recognize it for the right reason. It puts in a beautiful format all that is great. But I know I'm going away from the topic here. What I'm trying to say is, anything which is leading me to a state of passivity, I need to get out of it. And Vivikta Desha Sevitvam is basically that, where I'm allowing my mind not to think too much. So on that note of contemplation, there are some questions here. Am I, do I consciously take the time to take the thing? So this is why I said that word contemplate. How often do I really sit alone and contemplate? Do I have the tendency of escapism mentioned in this value? Do I see the benefits in cultivating this value? If so, how do I do this every day? So that's the point of reflection that we need to think. Okay, so I know there is one other value which we can get to, but maybe I'll just take a few minutes. We can go through it quickly, and then, because they're all kind of tied together. So the next one is Aratihi Jana Samsadi. So Arati. So Rati means love for something, or an inclination towards it. But adding to Rati makes the word indicating the absence of it or lack of inclination. Lack of inclination for what? What is this? It is basically love for Janaha. And Samsadi means assembly or collection. So this value basically means a lack of craving for parties. Okay. I'm just using the word party here because party is a group of people where, I feel very comfortable. I look for it. So essentially, so this value is saying that, it's not that we need to have any uh, dislike for people or anything. We do need the company and everything, It's not that one should dislike being around people, but the key thing that this value is trying to address is, I do not need people to keep me happy. Okay. So I do not need social interaction to make me happy. I mean, so this is really addressing this value of aloneness and loneliness, you know. One second, I'm sorry, I have to take this. Hari Om, Hari Om, tell me, Hari Krishnan. Perfectly fine. I can leave at 8:30. Okay. 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 I'll finish. Yeah, no problem. I'll be at Chinmay Vani at 8:30. Okay. Okay. You're welcome. Bye. So Arati Jana Samsadi is then ultimately it means that it's not that I should hate the company of people or anything, but I should not get carried away by others. You know, so especially this value is important in today's world where, you know, the concept of happy hour or this concept of going to the bars and all this is basically, if you look at it, when my mind is very tamasic, I tend to look for those places where I can just completely relax myself and just absorb myself in the company of other people, right? So that's what this is all about. It's the understanding that I am happy by myself. I don't need other people to keep me happy. And in many ways, this Vivikta Desha Sevitvam, which is, you know, I do not, it's an escape for myself to a quiet place. So they're kind of tied together. That is why I wanted to uh, put these two beautiful attitudes, you know. So from this, I never have to escape from myself. Neither am I disturbed by the presence of people or absence of people. So in both the sense, that's why these two values they go to each go together, you know. So neither am I avoiding people, nor am I really wanting the company of people. I'm happy by myself. That is the whole idea. I don't have to do it. So why is this important again? This is very important because it really allows me to reflect on these different questions. Who am I? What is this creation? What is this relation of, you know, between me, this Maicha Ananya Yogena, which we talked about? It really allows me to reflect upon all these questions, which is very important. And all these questions will come to a mind only when I make the mind eligible for it. Only when I make the mind, you know, quiet. I escape from regular things. I take the time, you know, especially coming to an ashram like where I'm right now here. It really forces you sometimes to think a lot of these things and so much amount of time where you don't have to spend your time for cooking. I don't have to spend time for shopping. I don't have to think about, you know, what kind of food I'm going to have. Whatever is coming to me, then it gives you time to think on many of this. So it really prepares your mind to be contemplative and a sensitive mind. And this kind of sensitivity is needed, of course, not just for spiritual knowledge, even to have good relation with people around me, right? I become very non-reactive and I'm very contemplative. So anyway, these are the points for reflection here. But maybe in the context of all these values, we can do it next week. I know we are already 10 minutes over time. Sorry about that. I know we joined a little late. We joined only about 4 minutes afterwards. So anyway. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you, everyone. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Sunita
Thank
ji.
you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank
Hari
you.
Om. Thank
Hari
you,
Om.
Sunita ji.
Thank you so much.
Hari Om.
Hari
Hari Om.
Om.
Bye.
Happy Rama Navami too.
Happy Ram
Yes,
Navami to
thank you.
everyone.
Wish you the same.
Bye.
Happy
Happy Shri
Ram
Ram Navami.
Navami. Thank you so
Hari
much.
Om. Hari